Keep saying that. We'll go ahead and begin. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to this afternoon's agenda meeting. This afternoon we'll review those actions that will be formally addressed with vote next Tuesday, February 18th already, right here at City Hall beginning at 6 p.m. And I'll call upon our city manager, Mr. Bill Burrow, to review those action items. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Starting off, we'll have the city manager's report, which will be the state of the city. As you know, I'm obligated to provide a state of the city report to the board within 60 days of the new year. So we'll plan on doing that at your February 18th meeting. First item is Resolution R2526, a resolution revising the 2025 and the 2024 budget by appropriating funds for certain prior year expenditures and for other purposes. And our Finance Director, Karen Scott, will present the item. Karen.
Thank you. Good afternoon. In Arkansas, municipal budgets expire at midnight on December 31st each year. Purchase orders that were issued against that budget expire also. Thus, items that were ordered in 2024 but were not received until 2025 must be charged against the 2025 budget. At the beginning of each year, we must make appropriations in the current budget, that will be now 2025, for capital items and one-time projects that were not received or completed before December 31st of the prior year. In addition, certain budget adjustments are needed in 2025 and are due to known changes, as well as a budget amendment that is needed in the 2024 budget. You will have in your packet an item reflects as Attachment A, that will be the 2024 remaining appropriations that need to be reappropriated for 2025 expenditures. You will also have Attachment B, that will list all of the open purchase orders that will need to be carried over into the 2025 budget. And Attachment C reflects a small budget amendment that is needed in the jail expense fines budget. The increase in each effective fund reduces the 2024 year-end fund balance or net assets, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Ms. Scott? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, consider Resolution R2527, a resolution approving a solid waste facility financial assurance agreement pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated 86-1603-D4, and our solid waste director, Samantha Jones, will present. Sam?
Hello. In order to retain the permit for the Hot Springs Transfer Station, Arkansas and federal environmental regulations require the City of Hot Springs to demonstrate its financial ability to pay costs of facility closure if such action were needed. That cost has been calculated to be $60,750. Based on these regulations, the best mechanism for the City of Hot Springs to use for financial assurance is a method called contract of obligation. This contract with DEQ allows for the deduction of closure costs from any funds being dispersed to the city by the state.
Very good. Any questions of the board? Thank you.
Next is consider Resolution R2528, a resolution approving the purchase of a commercial front-load collection vehicle from River City Hydraulics, Inc., pursuant to the cooperative purchase program through Sourcewell in the amount of $389,507.87. And again, Samantha.
I am requesting board approval to purchase a front-load collection vehicle from River City Hydraulics through the purchasing cooperative program Sourcewell. This truck is used to provide weekly service on commercial dumpsters throughout the city. The new truck will replace Unit 9428, which is 10 years old. The quoted price is $389,507.87.
Any questions on this item? Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Miss Sam, have we done any business with River City before?
Yes.
We have. I thought the name sounded familiar. And Sourcewell?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Next, consider Resolution R2529, a resolution approving the purchase of a roll-off truck from River City Hydraulics, Inc., pursuant to the cooperative purchasing program through Sourcewell in the amount of $265,400. And again, Samantha.
I am requesting board approval to purchase a roll-off truck from River City Hydraulics through the purchasing cooperative program Sourcewell. This truck is used to provide service to customers throughout the city that require a 30-yard roll-off or a dumpster, or a compactor, sorry. The new truck will replace 9483, which is 10 years old, and the quoted price is $265,400.
Any questions of directors on this item? Hearing none? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have considered Resolution R 2530, a resolution approving the purchase of a 125 horsepower hydromatic pump for the Molly Creek Sewer Pump Station from Instrument Supply pursuant to ACA 1458-104 in the amount of $99,465, and our Utilities Director, Monty Ledbetter, will present the item.
Yes, sir. Staff is requesting to replace this hydromatic 125 horsepower pump from Molly Creek. It's a wore-out pump. It was purchased originally in 2008 and is in bad need of repair. This is a major pump station, so we need to get it back up and running. This station is currently operating on one pump, and it requires two to operate in high flow situations, but we are on standby with our replacement, our backup pumps. So we're in good shape. We just need to go ahead and get this thing ordered. This replacement is an exact replacement of this particular pump model, so it should fit in there without any major modifications or anything. The purchase price from Instrument Supply that we got quote for is $90,835 plus applicable tax, and Instrument Supply is the sole distributor of hydromatic pumps and parts in this area.
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. Monty, here it's got a price of $99,465. Which one's right? The one you just said or this one here?
It's with
That
tax.
includes the
Oh,
tax.
with tax?
Yeah,
Okay.
he didn't quote the tax in
I
it.
got you. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the Molly Creek sewer pump, is that going to be pretty close to Molly Springs Road? Is that on the, or where in relation to Molly Springs Road is that pump? Pretty close? or-
It's pretty close. It's, I couldn't tell you exactly where it's at. I don't know exactly where it's at, but
We can get you that information. We put it.
I can
It'd
get
be
that
in the packet.
information to you.
Okay.
I apologize.
Yeah.
We
That's
put a map
okay.
in the packet.
There's a lot of them out there, so.
Thank you.
4,500.
Monty, you said there's two pumps there. The one that we're replacing was, what'd you say, installed in 2008? Is the other
Yes, sir.
one about the same age, or?
Yes, sir. We'll be looking at replacing it or looking to see if it's rebuildable. If it's not, we'll have to replace it too. The stator's bad in this one, so that makes it more expensive to rebuild. We try to rebuild them as much as we possibly can, but this one's beyond repair.
And you had indicated that you are operating on two pumps, but you have a kind of a spare that you throw in?
Yes, sir.
there?
We have backup pumps to take out to the stations and use them when we need to.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions? Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Monty, is this pump readily available, or is there a wait time on it?
There'll be a wait time on it.
Okay.
Right now, I don't have an ETA on when it's gonna arrive, but 125 horsepower hydromatic should be available within 4 to 8 weeks.
Reasonable time now?
Reasonable
It's not
time.
a year's lead time or anything like that?
Yes, sir. It's
Okay. Thank you.
not anything like that.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Next, consider Resolution R 2531, a resolution approving the procurement of a Caterpillar compact excavator with accessories from J.A. Riggs Tractor Company, doing business as Riggs Cat, pursuant to the Cooperative Purchasing Program through Sourcewell. This is in the amount of $66,945. And again, Mr. Ledbetter.
Yes, sir. This is replacing one of our sewer lift department Caterpillar. It's an old one as well. It was purchased originally in 2007, and it's a 302 Mini X, and we're wanting to replace it with the Model 304 excavator, and using the Sourcewell contract 020223. And as Bill mentioned, the price of this new one is $66,945 plus sales tax.
Okay, any questions of Monty on this item? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have consider resolution R 2532, a resolution awarding a bid to Welco Electric Service Company LLC for a generator replacement at the Central Fire Station at 310 Broadway Street. This is in the amount of $86,252.88, and our Fire Chief Ed Davis is here to discuss the item. Ed?
Thank you, board members. So today I come before you wanting to replace a 1996 model Caterpillar generator, 100,000 watt, that is the backup power for Central Fire Station and the EOC. We received two bids from this. One was from Welco Electric at $86,252, which was a low bid. There was a second bidder at $179,500. The current bid from Welco is for an 8860 cc engine, 100,000 watt generator. It'll also produce 347 amps at 60 hertz. It's a natural gas generator. It's a brushless alternator on it. The circuit breaker set up on it is a 400 amp. It also comes with automatic transfer switch as well for both 120 and 208 volt three-phase power. Now, what makes this bid actually something that is an incredible deal is this also includes the demolition of the HVAC systems, the plumbing system, and the electrical system that would be required to actually put this in place. They'll actually bring a crane in to set it. Then they will actually replace the HVAC system. They will replace the circuits and replace the plumbing that they had to demolish in order to install this generator. It is a great deal. And the generators that come from Generac are about as good as you can get right now.
Any questions of Chief Davis? Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, the one that we're replacing, was it just be sold for scrap? Is it still usable in any capacity? Or?
Well, actually, what we'll try to do is we'll have to send it off and get it rebuilt. It will require a new transfer switch because the one that's on there is defective. But it could be rebuilt and could be reused. And we may actually, if it turns out that, that it's, within a reasonable amount of money, we may actually install another fire station. But it will have to be rebuilt. It's in poor shape.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Chief, the new generator versus the one that's has failed, their capacity the same, or is this one a little bigger?
Yes, sir, it's the same. We'll be powering the same circuits in the Central Fire Station we've always powered, EOC, heating, things like that, and some of the other outlets and things like that in the major areas. There's display boards throughout the fire station. Those will all be powered. There will be outlets. In fact, all the fire station outlets that will be powered are identified as red outlets. They're separate from the regular ones, so they're easily identified. And all of the major circuits, as far as like the dispatch system and also for human needs and stuff, are all on this.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Next item is consider resolution R 2533, a resolution approving the 2025 annual street paving and preservation program list. And again, our assistant engineer will discuss the item, but we do have some additional information that I'm going to send out before your packet typically comes out, and that is the actual list and then a comparison that Mike has done over the last 3 years. Not really comparing anything other than mileage and cost in each one of the districts. As you know, we don't take districts into the rating factors when we're coming up with the street index, but it does help us have a look back. It helps you as you discuss things with your constituents to know where we've paved in the last couple of years, what are we looking at in 25 and so forth. So we're going to try to get you some additional information this year that you really haven't had in the past. So I'll be getting that out to you either later today or tomorrow, and you'll be able to review that prior to your packet coming out. Mike?
Yeah, and I would like to give credit to James. He actually put together that extra information that you're going to receive, so that's really James doing that work. The 2025 street paving list includes 15.9 miles of paving across sections of 73 streets. Additionally, the list includes 6.2 miles of alternate streets which may be paved if funding allows or if any of the primary streets are delayed. Streets were selected based on input from city residents, recommendations from Public Works, and a pavement rating spreadsheet using data from First Step Street Inventory Study. The selection process has considered potential conflicts with upcoming utility relocations and repairs. Before finalizing the list, the engineering department evaluated each street to confirm its suitability for paving. To complete the work, the city will extend our current term contract with Cranford Construction, and the estimated cost is $5.5 million.
Any questions of Mike? Director Beard?
Thank you, Mayor. If we want to, after you put the list out with all the streets on there, if we want to add streets, how would that work?
You'd make an amendment at the meeting. You'd ask to
Okay.
have the list amended to, make a
Okay.
motion to have it amended with that listing
Okay.
in there.
So then we shouldn't really, just wait till the list comes out, basically. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Now, Mike, we did 22 miles in 24, so we're doing 15.9 in 25. Bill, are we expecting less revenue, or is just the cost per mile impacting the number of miles we can do?
Well, we've got about 6 million in there. A lot of that, this year, we're putting into sidewalks and some of those changes. As you know, our roads now, we can only use that for repair streets, sidewalks, and bridges. We do have a pretty robust sidewalk repair scheduled in 2025, so taking that in consideration, it does bring down a little bit of the paving. But I feel like we're gonna be able to get all sections of these 73, and speaking with staff, I think we'll get the primary list as well as the alternate list. I think we'll get those complete, especially if we're able to piggyback off the 2024 rates that we have from Cranford.
Now, a couple years back, we had an outside service drive through the city with some technology and identify the worst, kind of prioritize the sheet or the streets. Are we still working off that list?
That was done in '23, when we are talking about, we got a price to do that again this year, after we get some of this work done in the fall. So we would like to update that list, and we've been talking with Denny about that. We
Yeah, I
have a
think
proposal to
it's
do that.
important. I think when we first did that, we said, well, this will serve us for a while, but, assuming that, streets all break down at the same rate, maybe, but at the same time, we all have received communication from citizens saying, well, why that street, not mine? Mine's worse than that. And
Right.
so maybe there's been some changes over time.
Well, I'm sure there has been, and what we have a very large, I have it in my office on the wall that shows, green, yellow, red, orange, some colors in there. And as we pave a street, we change it to green so that we kind of know where we're at. But there are deterioration going on, so what might have been, yellow before is now could be red. So we're hoping to reevaluate that this year and have a new list based on the new numbers next year.
Okay.
But we do consult the 23 drive-through that they did.
Yes, we look at that for our selection.
Any other questions of board members? Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, what's a mile cost now, say mill and pave?
It could be
Is it over
about
300?
250,000, something like that.
Keep in mind, we have to mill all of our streets and then pave because we have curb and gutter streets.
Right.
You can't really compare that to some streets that all you have to do is overlay.
Right.
So ours do cost a little bit more than you would see, say, maybe in the county.
Yes.
Just from the fact that we've got to mill down to be able to maintain our stormwater system.
There's a few streets that we might not mill, but almost everything in the city is milled.
Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, we finished 2024, I know, but there are some streets that are going to have to be milled again and repaved because of some bad
We do have some
asphalt.
repairs to do.
Okay.
We would be doing them now, except the weather hasn't been cooperating. But
Okay.
we do have a list that we're working off, and we've already spoken to the contractor. He's agreed to come back and do some repairs on that list.
Very good, thank you.
Director Trustee, they actually have equipment that's still here. That
Okay.
They'll start this prior to the 2025 list, so they're ready and have crews ready to come back in. I think there were 3 streets maybe that we've got to mill portions of and come back. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll double check before next week, but I'll get that list that's for repairs.
But they're coming back before we start this project.
Great, thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Next, consider Resolution R-2534, resolution authorizing the filing and acceptance of a U.S. Department of Transportation project grant to support the inventory, assessment, and remediation plans for downtown stormwater drainage structures. And again, our Assistant City Engineer, Mike Hill, will present. Mike?
Yes, the Protect Grant Program provides financial assistance to enhance the resilience of surface transportation infrastructure, including stormwater systems against climate-related hazards such as flooding and extreme weather. In our downtown area, much of the aging stormwater infrastructure lies beneath the roadways and sidewalk, posing significant risk of sinkholes as stormwater pipes and tunnels deteriorate. This project aims to improve our GIS mapping of the stormwater system, inspect existing stormwater infrastructure, and investigate possible improvements to reduce flooding. The information from this project can enhance flood resistance, prevent future sinkholes and flooding, and protect roadways, businesses, and public safety through advanced inspection, repair, and improvement planning. The thermal basin will be used to define the project area, because this is a very simple way to define it. The estimated cost for this is $450,000, and there is no match funding. This is all federal funding.
Any questions of Mike on this resolution? Are these grants still being, I guess, awarded? Given
This is an interesting one. You recall we had a RAISE grant going out earlier, and they did some major revisions over the weekend that we had to make changes in our grant in order to better fit their new requirements. This particular grant, they have not sent out any revisions, so it's due on the 24th. So we're wondering if, as time gets closer, they may put out a few revisions and we may have to do some changes. So, but this one right now, the requirements are exactly as they came out in November.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Director Beard has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The, does this grant have anything to do with the building extension or the RAISE grant that the city was awarded? Do either one of these have to do with that?
No, and we're still waiting to hear about that RAISE grant we won. We had a information meeting set up, but they have postponed that meeting, and we're waiting to hear about it being rescheduled.
Okay, so with the, so the meeting is to determine how the award is to be spent? Is that what the meeting is?
It was just our first meeting to get in the process. It takes a long time to actually sign the agreement with the feds. My understanding is usually at least a year before you get everything worked out. And this was just our first meeting to get the first details, and they postponed that meeting.
Okay. Well, since we're on the topic, there was a grant written for the building extension. Is that
Oh, the building
correct?
extension? That was the part of the planning grant, so that is in the RAISE planning grant. But that was for planning.
Okay. Thank you.
We did receive that grant. We've got planning and construction. We received the planning grant. Now we're going to apply for the building portion of the grant.
Yeah, that we did apply for that earlier. We haven't heard back. We won't hear back till I think sometime this summer.
You mean the building extension, you've not heard back from them? Or I'm
The building
confused.
extension is planning.
Okay.
And we did win that one, but they postponed giving us any more details.
Gotcha.
The other grant, RAISE grant, that we applied and haven't heard back from yet, the results of that, they made a lot of changes, but we won't hear back from that till later this year.
Okay. So we just wait. Thank
Any
you.
additional questions? Thank you, Mike.
Next is consider resolution R2535, a resolution amending resolution number 10384 by approving an updated appendix K of the airport property management policy to reflect the current airport property rates based on the Consumer Price Index CPI. And our airport director, Don Rollett, will present. Don?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In spring of 2024, the airport property management policy was amended and approved to change the process of the CPI adjustments to an annual basis, to be conducted in January and brought to the board in February for effective in March of each year. This evaluation this year has resulted in a 2.2% increase in the rents for hangars and terminal space, far less than what it was last year. Also on the Appendix K, the ground lease prices have not been adjusted since 2020. And so on here, we're showing an increase on the ground lease outside of the airport is currently $660 an acre. They're raising that to $700 an acre. And inside the fence, going along with hangars and so forth, the price currently is $330, and that would go up to $365 per acre. Additionally, the Appendix K reflects some changes on the airport service fees that have not been adjusted in about 5 years, as maintenance and parts costs for specialized equipment such as ground power unit and lab carts, for example. The fees have not kept up with those increases. The current or the proposed Appendix K prices are consistent with other airports of our size, and they vary between $5 and $15 increase.
Any questions on this? Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Don, will those changes or those revisions be highlighted, or will it just be all the same type? I mean, will they be easy to spot? What's changing?
Most everything has a change on it because the way the appendix is laid out, it has
Right.
the individual hangars, so
Okay.
all of those change. Most everything on the page is a change. I can go back and we can highlight specifics like the fees and stuff like that if you want.
Might be helpful, instead of
Okay.
having to just compare what we previously had to
Okay.
the new one. Thank you.
Okay, I can do that.
Don, if you do that, will you do that on a separate sheet? Don't do it on the one that is attached to the.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
What's your occupancy on your hangar space? You have available space?
100% occupied with approximately 20 on the waiting list.
All right,
That's great.
thank you.
I stand corrected on that. There is one commercial hangar that we're working on getting somebody in, but that's a larger commercial hangar.
Thank you.
Next, we have consider resolution R 2535. A resolution, oh, I'm sorry. Just did that one. Consider resolution R 2536, a resolution authorizing filing and acceptance of a discretionary grant with the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, for additional airport improvement program, bipartisan infrastructure law, the BIL, funds, and a supplemental grant from the Arkansas Division of Aeronautics, ADA, to assist the site preparation related to the hangar construction project on the south ramp at the Hot Springs Memorial Airport.
I'll put that in the background next time.
That may be the longest title we've had, Don.
I like being unique, sir. On this resolution, in the spring of 2024, Hot Springs was awarded 2 grants from the Arkansas Division of Aeronautics to build a hangar on the south ramp. We were approved for a 90-10 for the hangar structure and an 80-20 split for the site preparation between the ADA and the airport. This project was previously going to be with just the ADA, the airport. FAA doesn't get into hangars a lot. Through some discussions with the FAA, though, they've decided to offer an assistance on the project of $140,220 in discretionary funds to be used toward the ground site preparation. So that this resolution is a request to apply for and accept those discretionary funds.
Very good. Any questions, Ron, on this item? Thank you.
Next, we have considered resolution R 2537, a resolution approving work order number 19A 10993-1 to the master agreement for professional services between the City of Hot Springs and Garver LLC and for the Hot Springs Memorial Airport Terminal renovation project. This is in the amount of $263,000. And again, Don.
This resolution is for work order with Garver for the design and administration of the airport exterior renovation. We received a notification of a pending grant from the FAA for $1.4 million to work on the exterior of the airport terminal. So this is that planning stage. The payment of this work order is contingent on the political environment in Washington, D.C. and the temporary grant freeze status as we go forward.
Any questions on this item? Thank you.
Thank you.
Don, this is the one where we'd have to actually transfer $263,000 from our ARPA funds, correct, to finish the tower? Is that what's in this bar here?
No, this is just the work order itself.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Next, consider resolution R 2538, a resolution adding certain water and wastewater assets into the Hot Springs Municipal Utility Water and Wastewater System Fixed Asset Register, and our city engineer, Gary Carnahan, will present.
Thank you. This is something we do a couple times a year, and this time we have 14 projects on the list that you'll have in your packet. 6 of them are in the city limits, and the total is $2.2 million of new water and sewer mains that were built and will be added to the city. 8 of those projects were outside the city limits and total about $900,000. So the total amount is $3.1 million.
Any questions of Gary? And again, the list of locations will be in our packet.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have considered resolution R 2539, a resolution authorizing the filing of applications with the Federal Transit Administration for federal transportation assistance authorized by 49 USC Chapter 53, Title 23, United States Code, and for other federal statute administered by the Federal Transit Administration. Our Deputy City Manager, Lance Spicer, will present the item. Lance?
Yes, good evening. This particular item is more or less a housekeeping item. It's a little unique in that we are requesting the board to approve a resolution authorizing application for FTA fund. Usually there's a specific grant tied to those applications that we bring for you. This one is a somewhat new requirement of FTA. You have to have 2 system records as part of your transit award management system account. That is FTA's way. That's their web-based system that you essentially do everything with transit funding within that system. You have to have an authorizing resolution and an opinion of council. Those particular 2 records are not uploaded to our account. That may be an oversight. Obviously, the City of Hot Springs has been an FTA recipient for almost 45 years now, and that's something that on March 5th is a new requirement of FTA. So that's why we're bringing this before the board, to get that authorizing resolution and the opinion of council approved, so that the City of Hot Springs can continue to use those FTA funds for our transit system.
Any questions of Lance? Thank you.
Sir.
Mayor, that completes the consent items on your agenda for this next meeting. You'll move into a public hearing that evening of the proposed issuance of wastewater revenue bonds for the purpose of financing a portion of the cost of betterments and improvements to the wastewater system of the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, which will lead into our new business, which is consider your first ordinance of the evening, Ordinance O-2507, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of wastewater revenue bonds for the purpose of financing a portion of the cost of betterments and improvements to the wastewater system of the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, providing for the payment of the principal of and interest on the bonds, prescribing other matters relating thereto, and declaring an emergency. And Karen Scott, our Finance Director, is here to discuss the item. Karen?
Thank you. The City of Hot Springs, Arkansas proposes to issue its wastewater revenue bonds in one or more series in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $72,500,000 for the purpose of financing a portion of the cost of acquiring, constructing, and equipping betterments and improvements to the city's wastewater system, including particularly, without limitation, wastewater treatment plant improvements and improvements to gravity mains, force mains, and pump stations. To further secure the bonds, the city may provide a debt service reserve fund in the maximum principal amount of $7,250,000 in the form of a surety bond, debt service reserve insurance policy, or like instrument, or the reserve obligation. A public hearing concerning the proposed ordinance will be held before this item on your Board of Directors meeting next Tuesday at 6 p.m. And Bob Wright with Cruz and Associates is here to discuss the materials that he left at your desk. We also have Jack Trumper here with us from Stevens, our underwriters. Bob.
Welcome.
Thank you, Karen. Mayor, members of the board, I did pass out earlier for you to review some of the information. As we've been going through this, as many deals as we've done with you over the years, normally it's a pretty quick and simple process. There's been a couple of changes that I wanted to point out ahead of pricing next week, answer any questions that y'all have tonight, so that next Tuesday we're basically just updating the numbers from what we're looking at from today. What I handed out to you earlier, before we even started this process, Standard & Poor's, which is the credit rating agency that rates the water system and the sewer system of the city, had reached out and they wanted to do an updated credit rating on both systems, and we told them we were going through the wastewater as we spoke, so let's do both of these at the same time. Provided them a substantial amount of information. Bill and Karen and I had spent numerous hours on the phone with the water analyst and the sewer analyst, and they informed us that nationally, from their perspective, the water and sewer sector is on negative credit watch. They're looking at the wildfires in California. They're looking at hurricanes coming up through the Gulf and taking out big swaths of area in Tennessee and North Carolina, things like that. So they're very jittery on the whole sector itself. So we knew that we're probably facing a little bit of a kick on our underlying rating right off the bat. This first rating report I put in here is on the water system. We're not issuing any debt on the water system. We've already issued all the debt that takes care of the Lake Ouachita project. So all the major capital improvements on the water system itself. And a couple things I've highlighted. They went ahead, even though there's no debt associated with the water system right now, they downgraded the water system a notch from A to A minus. Inflationary pressures, things like that, increase in expenses is kind of what they were pointing to. But on their page 3, a few things that I highlighted, they believe that the metrics of the water system should stabilize. And they point out, as the water system has no other future debt plans and expects the new water treatment plant to be operational later this year. The new water source will build redundancy and reliability, which they view as a long-term credit strength. So they like the aspect of the projects that you undertook, but they point out a couple of other things I highlighted: below average income levels compared to nationally. They do point out affordable water system rates. They do believe that those rates are affordable. The one thing that I actually questioned them, and we sent them quite a bit of data, and they pointed this out on the water and the sewer system, highlighted under the environmental, social, and governance. The city is exposed to severe weather and large temperature swings, and that's a new one to me. We pointed out to them, and they really quizzed Bill and Karen on whether the city had wildfire insurance, which I didn't even know existed. And we pointed out to them that unlike California, we have pretty good wildlife mitigation services here with the National Forest Service in Arkansas. That's not a big issue. That the last flood in Hot Springs was mid to early 1990s and only really impacted downtown. But they really focused on things like that. So that was on the water system. And again, that just kind of points to that's their mindset, that whole sector is kind of on a negative trajectory. So if we'll flip over to the next, separated with the green tab, the next one, which is the sewer system and how they rated that. And you flip over and we got on the sewer system downgraded 2 notches. We got from an A down to a triple B plus. So we went down 2 notches. So one was, as you can see from the water system, one was already built in just as their overall national outlook. But their view on the wastewater system with the amount of debt that we're issuing, with the rate increase in place, that it gets pretty tight, which we knew that, and that's part of the rate study that y'all have looked at. But we had Dan look at his rate study and to maintain that same level that we were before the debt, that same A level, instead of the rate increases that y'all put in place the next 2 years of $2.50 on the minimum, it would have had to been $12.50 minimum rate increase this year and next year to maintain what they think would be an A-rated credit, the way they're looking at this. So that's part of the give and take that as we're looking through this. We somewhat expected a notch down. We were hoping we would not drop down to the triple B plus. That's still investment grade, and still we're getting the project done with the rates that are in place without coming back for any rate adjustments. A few things I highlighted on their page 3, on their credit overview. They think the rating reflects, in their view, the wastewater system's regulatory-driven debt needs, and that's exactly what we're doing here. We're answering to the consent administrative order, and that's what's pushing this debt, and there's no way around that. Again, on the wastewater, they think the city's exposed to severe weather and large temperature swings, and kind of knocked you on that. You're unlike anybody else, I guess. And the environmental regulatory compliance and related capital pressures remain a credit risk. So that's kind of what all went into their factor of saying with this new debt, that it's still investment grade, it's still in that triple B level, but that did notch us down a little bit. So that changed the numbers a little bit on how we accomplished this deal. But that's what we're here to kind of show you how that impacts our transaction, what the market's done, because we hadn't really spoken to you on the numbers since back in early November, because we then went through the referendum period on the rate ordinance, and then the question on whether there's going to be a referendum out there. So we plan, with tonight's update, answer any questions and such. We plan to price these bonds next Tuesday morning and be down here. And Jack is here. I asked him to come down if y'all had any questions on the actual marketing and selling of the bonds. But we'll be down here next Tuesday night with the final numbers all locked in. So if you look over to the last section, this gets into the numbers. And I've always show you all kind of what the market's doing, interest rates and all that. And this is an updated rate schedule that only goes back to August. But back in November, as we were kind of working through and getting pretty close and ready to kind of pull the trigger on the deal, but we sat back and waited because of the referendum on the rate ordinance. The interest rates since the first week of December until, I think we updated this yesterday, are up 33 basis points. So when you're talking $70 billion in debt and the market's up 30 plus basis points, there is an additional cost associated with that. But it is what it is. We have to, at some point, lock in where it is. Even today, driving down, checking with my desk, interest rates are up 4 basis points today alone. The market's pretty much priced in that the Fed's not going to make any movement on any rate cuts until possibly September as the first that the market's priced that in. So that's where rates are kind of settling in. The second page, the existing aggregate wastewater debt service, and we've shown you this before. This is where we stand right now, and it points out in the titles up there the various interest rates that you have on the outstanding debt, and everything is below The highest rate you're paying on any debt right now is 4.42%. So you're in really good shape right now. The one thing that I do want to highlight, your largest wastewater issue outstanding right now is your 2020 deal, the A and B. And we always try to set the optional redemption, the date that you can actually call the bonds in. We try to set that as short as possible to give you the opportunity that if rates do drop, we can come back and refinance and save you money. A draft of the preliminary offering document was sent out by Ryan Bowman earlier today, your bond attorney, and it had listed in there 2032. And I called Jack up and asked him to go to bat for the city as I'm pushing over on my side, on my desk, and he went and kind of pushed on his desk and his side. Let's not put them out there with a 2032 redemption. That kind of takes some flexibility away. So we did change the offering document, and we're going to go and match the June 2030 redemption date on this new debt. So if interest rates do drop, we have the opportunity out in 2028, 29, 2030 to come in and potentially refinance without having to wait till 2032. Jack and with his desk did a really good job for us in kind of pushing on his side as well. The next page, sources and uses. And Director Webb, you had asked at one of our prior meetings, hey, this par amount keeps going up and down. Why the gyrations, which is a good question. And I said at the time that the construction fund, which is what the need from the engineers came in, is still the same at $67.98 million. We're still taking care of all of the construction fund needs to answer the consent administrative order. The two things that are different from what you've seen that has added a little bit to the par amount that we're issuing, you can see down under the uses, there is a deposit to capitalized interest fund of $1,830,000. Not to get deep into the weeds, and we certainly can if you'd like, but the way that Standard & Poor's and even your CPA, the way that they look at the transfers from the wastewater system out to the general fund and out to the utility administration, they look at that as, in the waterfall of funds, basically, that's above paying the debt service, the mortgage on the system. The way that Dan had been showing that in his rate studies and we're showing you debt coverage, those transfers had been below the mortgage, below the principal and interest. So we had a little bit of difference of how those were viewed with Standard & Poor's and the CPA. So we're taking the very conservative approach and matching Standard & Poor's and your CPA to say that we're putting those transfers up here. In order to get this $67 million construction, we've got to put into the transaction this $1.83 million to pay the interest over the next year and a half. And that allows us to borrow the full amount. If we did not put the capitalized interest in there, the impact would be $17 million hit to the construction fund. So that's the benefit of putting that one line item in there. That moved that par amount up. The other change from what y'all have seen, everything else is basically the same. The other change, the insurance premium, if you recall, we have to work with a Build America firm out of New York that has a AA rated credit, and they put an insurance policy wrap around the bond issue that allowed the investors know that if something happens, if there's a natural disaster, if something happens to Hot Springs, they've got an insurance policy that's going to pay them back. So it lowers our borrowing cost, it lowers the interest rates that we have to charge. But since Standard & Poor's dropped us down to the BBB category, their insurance policy went up a little bit, and that's reflected in here. Bottom line, though, is yes, we are issuing on a par amount more debt, but we're still getting the full construction amount done without going back and adjusting rates again. The only thing I will say, just to keep in mind, if we get out 2 years, 3 years, and these are all projections from Dan, he's looking into a crystal ball. If we go out and expenses are up or revenues are down, you might have to come in if you don't meet the 1-to-1 coverage, a minimal coverage. You might have to adjust rates at that point. But if they meet with what his projections are, there will be no more adjustments, and the full amount of the wastewater needs are taken care of. Next couple pages, just lining out what we think, based on today's market, what the taxable piece would be, and then the tax exempt piece would be. The next to last page, total debt service, net debt service, is basically would be the whole system mortgage. And the only difference here from what you've seen in the past is the one column, that CIF, capitalized interest. And that shows that just reduces your payments in this year and partly in 2026 to allow us to afford to do this. And then the last page, same thing, debt service coverage that y'all have seen on before, not only on this one, but all the other deals we've gone through. The only difference that on this page versus what we showed you in November is we've added there, and you can see transfers in 2025 is 3.7 million, it's 3.8 million in 26, et cetera. Those were not in the original because we just copy and pasted what Dan had put together. So we modified that and included those transfers in there now to show, bottom line, that we meet the covenants that you're required to meet to issue the debt, that your CPA will issue the parity certificate that you meet the requirements to issue additional debt. So from this point until next week, unless the market goes haywire and rates go up, and if that's the case, we might have to do a little bit of adjustment, but things that have been pretty steady. So if they just hang in here for next week, we'll be able to come in Tuesday and show you the final numbers and deliver to you. The closing date would be, and I don't have that on there.
27th, March 27th.
Late March 27th. So you would have the funds in place, and I think you've got one contract that is been holding off, waiting for this funding to come through.
Correct.
So everything should be good.
Bob, you may have mentioned it, but with our BAM insurance, we're back up to a double A stable.
A AA stable from BAM Insurance. So the interest rates on here are equivalent to a AA rated type transaction because they look to the ultimate repayment is the insurance company.
Any questions of Bob?
I've got one.
Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Bob, you mentioned the possibility of refinancing, bringing it back to 30. What is the outlook on the 5-year interest rate cycle?
I think the general consensus from economists and such is within this 5-year period, we do expect rates could, at some point move down. Are they going to move back down to the level where we've issued some of your debt in the low 2s and 3s? Not without some type of natural, COVID supply chain issue. I mean, we've had some things that have artificially driven rates, but I think general consensus is, rates right now are trying to absorb all of the change in administration, the tariffs, how's that going to impact inflation, the supply chain, the labor market and things, with some of the immigration issues. So it doesn't really have a good foothold right now, but I think ultimately, 3, 4, maybe in that 5-year range, we could come back and revisit, especially this one. That's why we wanted to put that redemption of 2030. Maybe be able to address the 2020 issue as well. I don't think we'll ever touch any of the others. Those rates are way too low.
Right. Agreed. Thank you.
Bob, I had a question along the same line, but let me just do a little twist. At what point, how far would the interest rates have to drop in order for you to come to us and say, I think you need to refinance?
That's a good question.
I understand the jury's out. There's, some are saying no more drops in 25. I just saw somebody say 4 drops in 25. And, but eventually they're going to come down.
But again, consider when the Fed makes a move, that's on short-term rates and has really not much of an impact on long-term rates. And the Fed chair was actually interviewed yesterday, and one of the senators was asking him about long-term rates and the impact on mortgage rates and such like that and housing. and even he said, we don't have much control over those long-term rates. We can set the policy for short-term, and sometimes that follows along. But, to answer your question, the rates right now, when everything you have is sub 4.5%, this is going to be a little bit north of 5%. If they get into that 4% range, we will definitely come back and be discussing this one. When we issued for you back in 2000, we issued one deal that was completely taxable because the market allowed it, and it was much better. We can come back and just refinance a portion of this, just refinance the taxable piece, or we could come back and just refinance the tax exempt. But if we get into that 1%, maybe a little bit more than that overall drop in rate, is when we really start looking to say there's still cost of issuance to do any type of transaction. But if you can factor that all in, and a lot of times we've come in here and taken that refinance and leveraged the savings up to borrow more money without impact on the ratepayers. So there's a lot of variables that go into it. Instead of just a savings, there could be something that you could, not go back to your ratepayers and put more capital improvements into the system. But it is in that 1% range when we start really getting serious about it.
All right, thank you. Other questions of Bob? Thank you.
We will be here next Tuesday evening and to update you with the final results. Thank y'all.
Appreciate you.
Next is consider ordinance O-2508, an ordinance waiving competitive bidding pursuant to ACA 1447-138 and approving the purchase of 2 F-250 utility trucks from Smart Ford pursuant to the State of Arkansas Cooperative Purchasing Program. These will be in the amounts of $118,176.64. And our Public Works Director, Ron Seavright, will present. Ron.
Good afternoon. This is kind of a two-part request. The first part is that the F-250 Ford 3/4 tons are on a state contract. The second part that the staff is requesting for waiving competitive bidding in order to purchase these vehicles, because these vehicles are actually sitting on the lot complete with the utility beds and Tommy lifts, exactly the way the traffic folks want them equipped. Unfortunately, the state contract only has a $600 limit on accessories. So normally what happens when we buy these trucks, we buy a regular pickup, then we have to bid out the accessories and then add them on later. With this, we're buying the trucks essentially totally equipped. The benefit to that is that the $30,812, which is the cost of the accessories, will come to us tax-free, and the vehicles will also be, will be expedited to us, so we don't have to wait for them to be built. These trucks will be replacing 2 units. Unit 8262, which is a 2002 Ford F-150, has 83,502 miles, and vehicle 8811, a 2006 Chevrolet Silverado with 178,133 miles. And both of these are experiencing a lot of downtime.
Any questions of Ron? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have consider ordinance O-2509, an ordinance amending ordinance number 6513, Exhibit B, the official zoning map, and our Planning and Development Director, Ms. Kathy Selman, will discuss the item.
Thank you. According to Garland County Tax Assessor's Office data, the city of Hot Springs is comprised of 23,279 parcels as of January of this year. A new zoning map was a component of Code Forward, the city's new zoning code, and Camiros, our project consultants, along with city staff from planning and from information systems, spent many, many, many hours analyzing parcels on the city's existing zoning map and future land use plan maps, comparing city parcels against ordinances that had established zoning, evaluating historic land development patterns and existing uses. Now, 2 of our goals in remapping the zoning were to minimize nonconformities and to resolve situations where one lot has more than one zone district designation. Ultimately, a new zoning map was presented to and approved by Planning Commission and by the Board of Directors. You passed ordinance 6513 on Tuesday, November 19th, adopting a new zoning code and the zoning map. And the ordinance references the zoning code document, the rules, as Exhibit A, and the zoning map as Exhibit B. However, after adoption, 9 city parcels of the 23,279 parcels on the adopted official zoning map were discovered to be inconsistent with the intended zoning designations. And there is a giant spreadsheet that goes along with that map that identifies every parcel number and what zone district the map is supposed to represent. So 9 of those didn't make it the way they were supposed to. 5 of those were historically split zone. That's more than one zone district on a lot or parcel. 2 are parcels that somehow ended up being blank, therefore no zoning. And 2 involved parcels that were simply incorrectly designated. And all of the details on these parcels, along with review notes and map amendment recommendations, will come to you in your packet as Exhibit Table Number 1. Now, since the time in November 19th that you adopted the new map, you have approved 3 ordinances that rezone individual pieces of land in the city. And these zoning changes weren't on the official zoning map because they happened afterward. So those 3 changes, along with the corresponding code forward zone district conversions, will be illustrated on the map that you will look at on Tuesday. And this will all be explained on Exhibit Table Number 2, also in your packet. So the finding is that a need exists to correct 9 city parcels designated on the adopted ordinance 6513 Exhibit B, and also to reflect the 3 zone changes that occurred after November 19th on the official zoning map. This ordinance would be effective March 1st, 2025, which was the original effective date of the new code and the new map. So this will keep us on track. Planning Commission will hold a hearing, a meeting, on this Thursday, and will report their recommendation at your Tuesday meeting. So the request is that you adopt an ordinance amending ordinance number 6513, a revised Exhibit B official zoning map, effective March 1st, 2025, to replace the previous Exhibit B that was approved by ordinance 6513.
Any questions of Ms. Selman? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have to consider ordinance O-2510, an ordinance to provide access to health benefits for retired municipal employees, repealing ordinance number 5756 and for other purposes. And our city attorney, Brian Albright, discuss.
Thank you, Bill. Mayor, members of the board. Arkansas Code annotated section 24-12-129 provides that a municipal employee who is 55 or older and has completed 20 years of service to the municipality and who is receiving retirement benefits through lot fee or through APRS may continue to participate in the municipality's health care plan, provided that they pay both sides of that premium after retirement. Arkansas Code annotated 24-12-130 goes on to say that 24-12-129 does not prevent a city from allowing someone who is less than 55 years of age or who has provided less than 20 years of service from participating in the municipality's plan, so long as a retiree again pays both sides of the contribution. 24-12-132 was added later, and it provides that a retired employee may participate in the plan if they're retired and they are receiving benefits from the retirement plans from APERS or from lot fee. They pay both sides of the contribution. They are not covered by any other healthcare plan at any point during their retirement, and they notify the employee within 30 days of their official date of retirement of their intent to participate in the healthcare plan. In addition to that, 132 also provides that participating employees may also include their dependents on their coverage under the healthcare plan, again, provided that they pay both sides of the premium. And then finally, 132 also states that municipalities shall by policy or ordinance establish the criteria for eligibility of such a retiree. City of Hot Springs currently has Ordinance 5756, which was adopted in 2010, shortly after the passage of the state law regarding this. That establishes the eligibility for our employees under the retirement system. However, it could be interpreted as limiting or the continued participation to only those retirees who are over 55 and have completed 20 years of service, when it is conceivable that someone could retire or be receiving retirement benefits short of turning 55, and in some cases, even if they have less than 20 years of service. So this amendment, in order to comport with 2412-132, would state that a retired employee of the City of Hot Springs may continue to participate in the city's health care plan if he or she is receiving retirement benefits from lot fee or from APERS by virtue of their retirement from the City of Hot Springs. So in other words, whatever the triggering mechanism is for them to be receiving retirement benefits, whether it's years of service, whether it's their age, whether it's a disability retirement, as long as they are receiving those benefits, they're eligible under that prong, and then they pay both sides of the healthcare premium. They are not covered by any other healthcare plan during that period of time, which would include Medicare. So, for example, if someone were normal age of 65, or whatever that age is going to be by the time we get there, and they are covered by Medicare, their eligibility for the city's plan would then cease. And they notify the city of their intent to do so within 30 days of their retirement. Additionally, retired employee participating in the city's plan pursuant to Section 1 may include their dependents in their coverage, again, provided that they pay both sides of the contribution, and again, that the participating retiree or the dependent is not covered by some other health care plan. So again, if we had a situation where perhaps a dependent is receiving Medicaid, they would not be eligible under the city's plan because they're otherwise covered. Or a dependent is on the father or mother's plan, and they reach an age and they move on and become covered on their own. They move off the city's plan. They have to remain uncovered by any other system in order to stay under the city's plan. And that in the event that any otherwise eligible retiree or designated dependent thereof, as the case may be, should fail to comply with any of the requirements herein, the otherwise eligible retiree and or designated dependent would then be removed from the healthcare plan and will not be eligible to come back later. The effective date for this is stated as March 1, 2025. Assuming that the board approves this, we wanted to be able to make this benefit available to the employees as soon as possible. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions of Brian? Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think I heard you right, B, but in order to receive city benefits under this insurance plan, you were saying that all, not just the worker, but any dependent must fall under the city's umbrella of insurance coverage and not receive anything outside of that coverage?
In order to be covered under the city's umbrella, they must, first of all, be a dependent of an eligible retiree.
Right.
The retiree and or the dependent must pay both sides of the premium, the employer and the employee contribution, and they must not be otherwise covered by another.
Can't have a
healthcare
separate
plan.
insurance
That's right.
coverage?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, who monitors? who's
HR.
HR monitors the dependents also? And then secondly, you said that the retiree has to pay both sides of the premium. What is the approximate cost of that?
It depends on what level we're
Right.
talking about, but Brooke Gilbert's here. She may be able to tell you the dollar amount associated
Or it could
with
be
that.
put in the packet. That's
We'll
fine.
we'll include that in the packet so that it's as accurate as possible.
That's fine. Thank you.
Individuals about 700.
Do what now?
Individuals about 700.
It's in that
Okay.
neighborhood.
And so it would go up if it was a family or if it was a,
Yeah.
yeah,
We'll put that
husband
in
and
there.
wife or husband and children or wife and children or whatever. Okay.
We can get that in there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Next is consider ordinance O-2511, ordinance authorizing an agreement with U.S. Bancorp Government Leasing and Finance, Inc. to provide short-term financing under Amendment Number 78 to the Arkansas Constitution for certain 2025 capital acquisitions, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. And our Finance Director, Karen Scott, will discuss. Karen?
Thank you. The city seeks to obtain financing for capital items approved in the 2025 budget in the total amount of $2,048,646. That is comprised of vehicles in the amount of $1,100,646, specialized equipment in the amount of $608,000, and heavy equipment in the amount of $340,000. During the 2025 budget process, these items were identified as being being purchased using financing by borrowing funds rather than using current operating funds. And you will have a list in your packet of these items that I just discussed. A request for financing proposal was issued in January, and responses were received by 3 responsive bidders. The bids were evaluated, and U.S. Bancorp Government Leasing and Finance, Inc. has provided the most favorable proposal at 6 basis points below the 5-year Treasury at the time of the loan. The 5-year Treasury was 4.31% on February 2nd, 2025, so the rate would be 4.25%. For purposes of comparison, the rates on the 23 and 24 financing were 4.31% and 4.38% respectively. It would be in the city's best interest to declare this as an emergency so that funding could take place immediately in order to take advantage of the lender's offer to lock in the rate of 4.25%. Again, the list of items will be attached. And for just your information, during the 2025 budget process, I used a 6% rate to estimate debt service on these funds. And so this is, of course, a favorable lower rate for the city.
Any questions of Karen? Yes, Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Karen's not here, so I'm asking all
There
the
you
questions, so. Just a quick, how long is that rate good for? You said they would honor it. Is it a 30-day quote? A 45?
They know that it's coming before you next week.
So certainly good through
Correct.
maybe the end of the month or something. Thank you.
The term on it, is it a 5-year?
5 years.
And so we're constantly kind of making our
Yes.
payments on the other ones and
Correct.
retiring one and adding one.
The amount of principal that dropped off in 2024 was $3.371 million from previous loans.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Next, we have ordinance O-2512. Consider ordinance O-2512, an ordinance amending ordinance number 4002 and ordinance number 4177, codified as Hot Springs Code 521.1, pertaining to the members of the Hot Springs Advertising and Promotion Commission and for other purposes. And again, our city attorney.
Thank you, Bill. Mayor, members of the board, Arkansas Code annotated section 2675-605 is the statutory provision that authorizes the creation of the A&P, and it sets forth that it will be composed of a 7-membered commission. 4 of those members are to be owners or managers of businesses in the tourism industry, which 3 of those must be either owners or managers of hotel, motel, or restaurants, and they serve on a staggered 4-year term. Another member is an at-large position, which also serves as a 4-year term. The last 2 members are members of the governing body of the municipality, and they are selected by the governing body and shall serve at the will of the governing body. In 1989, the City of Hot Springs adopted Ordinance 4002, That created our 7-member commission. Later in 91, ordinance number 4177 amended that previous ordinance by adding the method by which vacancies on the 4 tourism slots and the 1 at-large position would be handled. And that amendment provided for that the commission would do that subject to the approval of the governing body, again, this board. During your discussions last week regarding resolution 10599, which you ultimately adopted, Director Beard made a motion to amend that particular resolution as it was on the floor. And I think you all received your minutes yesterday from that meeting. The motion was position 2 of the Board of Directors on the A&P Commission shall be permanently reserved for the city director or elected representative who serves District 2, or should the lines be redrawn, the neighborhood where the land was acquired for the convention center expansion. So the discussion was, could we do that last week? I indicated because that was dealing with the ordinance that needed to come back as an amendment to the ordinance. And so what will be in your packet is an attempt to provide for that, an amendment, which would state as follows. There's hereby created the City of Hot Springs Advertising and Promotion Commission, which shall be composed of 7 members as follows. 4 members shall be owners or managers of businesses in the tourism industry who shall reside in the corporate limits of Hot Springs. At least 3 of these members shall be owners or managers of hotels, motels, or restaurants and shall serve for staggering terms of 4 years. 2 members of the commission shall be members of the governing body and shall be designated as position 1 and position 2. I will add that from the beginning, that's the way that we have referred to the board members that are appointed to the commission. Doesn't have anything with the district. We just have a position 1, a position 2, and historically up to this point, District 2 has always held that position 2 position. It's just coincidence that the 2s are 2s, okay? So they'll be designated as position 1 and position 2 for purposes of appointment. Position 1 shall be selected by the governing body and shall serve at the will of the governing body. Position 2, and this is where, if we follow the motion from last week, position 2 shall be reserved for the city director for District 2, or should the district boundaries be redrawn. I added this as an explanation of what we mean by boundaries redrawn. Or should the district boundaries be redrawn as a result of an updated decennial census, because that's the only way that would happen. Then the city director from the district from which the land was acquired for the expansion of the convention center would serve in that capacity. And then, of course, the 1 member at large, that remains the way that it was. Filling the vacancy is the same. So the change here is taking what has been a custom of the board by having District 2 on the A&P Commission to an amendment to the ordinance that would say so.
Any questions of Brian? Director Webb?
Yeah, B, since the creation of the A&P Commission and then the installment of the 2 district city director positions that are on this commission, how many years would you say that District 2 has held that seat of position 2? Were you saying it was the entire lifespan of the commission?
It has, yes. Since 89. Really maybe even before that. Well, actually, 89.
Since 89?
Aaron Gordon was the first.
Any additional questions? Director Webb?
I think the other question I have is what might need to be entailed to just consider, and I'm essentially just thinking out loud here, quick. I probably shouldn't, but I am. But what might need to take place to have another consideration of maybe just bringing another seat to the table that represents the convention center as well, that area? You know, rather than just limiting, not to say that there's been any other direction than District 2 holding position 2C. That's the way it's been, you were saying, since 1989. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's okay. But rather than just limit it so that it always is District 2, why couldn't we have another seat at the table that encompasses that area of the convention center too? You know, so that there's still 2 positions available for city directors to serve at the A&P, but then also another chair at the table for the A&P commission that could come from somebody who puts in an application that lives in the area or district of the convention center. Does that make sense?
I think I know where you're going.
Like
And-
adding another seat.
Well, so this is really a discussion that should be on the floor if this is coming. However, I do want to address your question so that at least you all can be thinking about what you're talking about. You cannot change the number. The number is 7.
It can't be 8?
No.
Why?
State statute
Oh.
says 7. State statute says 4 of them have to be in the industry. 2 of them have to be from the board. You do have an at-large. You do have an at-large. Could that be changed to where it, you know, it falls into a category such as what you're suggesting? Perhaps, but I'll say again, I think that that's something that
Bring to the floor?
this isn't for a debate. But it is, it's a possibility.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Mary, the last item for your next meeting is ordinance O-2513, an ordinance amending ordinance number 6454, regulating short-term residential rental businesses within the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, providing an exception for veterans with service-connected, permanent, and total disability rating, and for other purposes. And again, Mr. Albright.
Thank you, Bill. Mayor, members of the board. Recently, Director Webb has shared some of the following with the board, that disabilities of veterans include physical disabilities, mental health conditions, other medical conditions. Oftentimes, these conditions prevent disabled veterans from obtaining and maintaining steady and physically reliable employment. Operating a short-term residential rental could provide a source of steady and physically reliable income to a permanently disabled veteran. Their current limit of 400 short-term residential rental business licenses within the residential zoning districts has been reached. So there are no more licenses available in residential zones. Director Webb believes it's in the best interest of the city to create a separate allotment of short-term residential rental business licenses within the residential zoning districts of the city for permanently disabled veterans. An amendment to ordinance number 6454 as codified under 16-10-2E is required to achieve these intentions. And so the amendment to that would be found in 16-10-2E under a maximum number short-term residential rental licenses under residential zoning districts. This would be this is the section that's already there. The cap there would remain at 400. That's what's in place now. I did take this opportunity to amend this section to include residential zoning districts as opposed to our old R1, R2, R3, R4, RL that's in our old code that's being phased out March 1, right? So that part is being updated. What is new is a paragraph 2, which is entitled U.S. Veterans with Service-Connected Permanent and Total Disability Rating, Residential Zoning Districts. In addition to the aggregate maximum allowable number of short-term residential rental business licenses delineated in Hot Springs Code Section 16-10-2E1, which is the 400 cap, there shall be up to 25 such licenses within residential zoning districts reserved for U.S. veterans with a service-connected permanent and total disability rating per calendar year, subject to the limit of 1 per immediate family. The application for such a license shall be limited to the property titled in the name of the U.S. entitled in the name of a U.S. veteran with service-connected permanent and total disability rating who resides within the city of Hot Springs. The applicant must provide confirmation of their service-connected permanent and total disability rating by letter from the Department of Veteran Affairs. All applications must comply with all other terms and conditions under Hot Springs Code Section 1610(1) at SEEK. Licenses issued are eligible for and subject to annual renewal pursuant to the applicable code section. The renewal of existing licenses shall be given priority over initial applications for new transient use sites. As you know, we also have, if our cap limit under our present 400 drops below 400 after May 1, which is the deadline for renewing, we then open up the portal again for new people to apply. We would do the same thing with this. Once the aggregate number of such licenses issued reaches 25, the portal will be closed, and the processing of any pending applications shall cease. The portal shall not reopen for any applications unless and until the aggregate number of such licenses total less than 25 after May 1st of the subsequent year, and thereafter the portal will open again on the following second Monday of July, and the process shall continue thereafter from year to year.
Any questions of Brian?
I have a question.
Director Holliday?
To make sure I understand this before it gets in the packet, the language is there's one license per immediate family member of the disabled veteran. However, the property itself must be titled in the name of the disabled veteran. How exactly does that work?
Let me get to it. The intent, if I need to rephrase it, I will. The intent is that the disabled veteran must be the one who applies and gets the license. If that disabled veteran is married to another disabled veteran, there won't be two licenses in that family. There'll only be one.
Just be one.
Okay, so the limit is per immediate family. It wasn't that the license is extended to immediate family members of the
No.
veteran. Okay, because that's what I was hearing. That's what I was
Subject to a
confused.
limit of one per immediate family.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Can ordinances be on a consent agenda?
No, sir.
No?
The
Okay.
reason for it, you have to suspend the rules.
Got you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Director Trustee?
Thank you. Mayor, Brian, if the disabled veteran were to pass away, would the license expire also?
Yes.
It could not be renewed the next year if it has to be in the name of the disabled veteran.
The licensee in this allotment of licenses
Mm-hmm.
would have to be
So it would cease operation.
the service-connected,
Right.
service-connected total and permanent disability rated veteran.
And the disabled veteran has to be the homeowner.
Yes.
Right, has to have title to the
Must
home.
have title. That was my point.
Yes.
They have to have title, and he or she passed away during the year, they could finish out that year, and then, but the license could not be renewed.
Could not renew, because they're gonna go through a renewal process every year.
Sure.
Just like the other 400. I say other 400. There's more than 400 because we have so many that are in commercial areas.
Well, and don't we have 420-something?
420.
420?
And you know, and that has been coming down.
It has,
I mean, we're
right,
seeing
right.
kind of saturation maybe in our marketplace.
Right.
There's probably still some that are waiting on it to drop below the cap, but it would not surprise me that come May, when the renewals are final, that we're not below the cap and have a couple more come on.
Okay.
But I do think we're starting to see, after a couple of years of having this in place, you know, the market correcting itself.
That seems to be the feeling downstairs, is that based on the rate of renewals that we may actually fall below 400.
And we had a bill drop yesterday.
We had a bill drop in the House yesterday.
Yes.
Bill and I and the mayor are going over tomorrow for committee hearings on this bill. If this bill makes it into law, there will be no regulation.
That's right.
Of short-term rentals.
So,
I do not know.
Go ahead, Director Trustee.
So, not to decide tonight, but if that, should we wait to consider this to see if that bill drops? Or are we doing something that may be,
Well, we're certainly doing something that in 30 days might not be.
that's right.
It has no weight, no meaning, no application
Be
to
moved.
anybody who wants to have STR.
That's right. Anyone. It'll be open to anyone.
It'd be moved.
Right. So it might be something to consider. Not, we don't have to decide and can't decide tonight, but.
Well, you can decide whether it's on the agenda or
That's
not.
true. That's true.
Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I don't think we should wait to see what happens. I think we're an entity, of a local municipality, with a good agenda item, coming to us as an ordinance, and I think we should move forward.
Well, it's certainly on the agenda. Excuse me, certainly on the agenda. Any further questions?
Mayor,
Director Trustee?
Not about this one, but I see that Sam is still here. I just had a question about item number 3 and number 4, where we're buying this new equipment. Is the old equipment, again, going to be scrapped? Does it have a value? Is it going to be parted
sold as
out?
surplus.
It's sold on surplus. Very good. Thank you.
And we typically put those on
Thank you.
Gov or eBay, one of those sites, and put it on online auction, try to sell them.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
that's our policy and practice for.
I should have asked that during the
for any old
hearing. Thank you.
vehicle.
You certainly did cover for Director Garcia.
I did, yeah. I felt
Director
obliged.
Webb?
I felt obliged to.
Have you ever done any work with that company before?
No. No.
I think I said that one, but I think Director Trustee got all the rest.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I have a question here that I meant to ask Miss Kathy on item number 17. When you give us a packet this week, are you planning and can you plan to include the old B exhibit along with the new B, where we can kind of stack those up as a comparative analysis? Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Director Beard?
Yes, would it help, if board members go with you all tomorrow to Little Rock? Or did you got it? You can handle that.
I think, faces and voices, sometimes matter to legislators who are contemplating action.
And, and I'm great, but it's always good to have an elected official there.
Yeah, I adjusted my schedule to provide, but the more the merrier. I think one of the frustrations of going to the Capitol for these sessions is that they're canceled, they're rerouted, they're rescheduled, and it's very, very exhausting to kind of keep up with everything. And so you drive down there, oh, we're not going to hear that today. You drive back, and
That's true.
heaven forbid, you might get called and say, hey, it's back on, and
Come back.
you
Yeah.
take the next ramp off and turn around and go head back.
I think that happened to us about 3 times 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was exhausting, but it's something that we had to do, and those people who wanted to have their voices heard on STR, they were there, and there was a communication network, and the same faces were there on both sides.
Yes.
They'll read the room.
So if that means if there's too many people in favor, then everyone go home. Then when everyone leaves, everyone come back, kind of thing.
Sometimes.
Okay.
I'm sure that's not true. It might appear that way.
Okay. I was just
when it is scheduled for tomorrow?
Yeah, what time is
What
the-
time is the
10 a.m. in the MAC building.
10 a.m. in the MAC building?
Yeah.
And for anybody who can't go and is just curious, you can watch the live proceedings on the Arkansas Legislature website. And it's in the city county local
Yeah,
committee,
and
correct?
they have an agenda just like we have an agenda, and STR is one of those items.
Right.
So, it could be heard, it could be not heard, or it could be no vote taken, could have discussion.
Sometime the members of the committee leave the room, sometimes they stay.
Mayor, we do have one other item if there aren't any other.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Director Beard has expressed interest in attending the Congress of Cities and National League of Cities in Washington, D.C. I believe that's coming up in March, correct?
First week of March, yes.
So this board won't convene again after the 18th prior to that meeting. And, you know, as our current policy, out-of-state travel by a board member needs to be approved by the board. So we either need to add that onto the agenda or have discussion on how that happens. I'll leave that up to B on what we need to do there.
I mean, you have to approve it. The only way you can approve it is by resolution, so.
Is this for further training in the realm of city director? Going to help you complete and provide better quality service for your constituents? Yep. I would move to get it on the agenda.
I was gonna say the conference in Washington is to meet with federal advocacy groups and our senators and House members. So that's the opportunity to do that there.
I do also want to make the board aware that we've had a couple of late, I'll call them late entries. You know, by policy, we're supposed to have the board's travel in within 5 working days. I've got a couple in over the past couple of weeks. That's going to be a pretty significant hit to your 2025 budget, even though they were 2024 expenses. Probably looking somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,000 to $4,500. I don't have that total amount, maybe $3,500, I can't remember, but we're going through those now, but it will affect your 2025 out-of-state travel for the board without a budget adjustment.
Well, create the resolution for travel as requested, and, you know, we were going to have that work session today, which would have been pertinent, because, you know, the amount of travel that anybody does, you know, there is, I don't want to use the word disparity, but there is a difference between what some are using and others, so we need to look at our travel budget. So, all right, anything else?
That's it.
Well, what was the cost for the DC travel?
I don't know. Do you know what the cost is?
No? Okay.
I'd say probably about 3,000, somewhere in there.
All right, those are the action items that will be formally addressed next Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. right here at City Hall. And have a safe evening.